a band of brothers and native to the soil, fighting for our liberty through famine, war, and toil. And when our rights were threatened, the cry rose near and far, hurrah for the bonny blue flag that bears a single star. Hurrah, hurrah, for Southern rights, hurrah, hurrah for the bonny blue flag that bears a single star. As long as the Union was faithful to her trust, like friends and like brethren, kind were we and just. But now when northern treachery attempts our rights to mar, we hoist on high the bonny blue flag that bears a single star. Hurrah, hurrah, for Southern rights, hurrah, hurrah for the bonny blue flag that bears a single star. Here's to our Confederacy, strong we are and brave. Like patriots of old we'll fight our heritage to save. And rather than submit to shame, to die we would prefer. So cheer for the bonny blue flag that bears a single star. Hurrah, hurrah, for Southern rights, hurrah, hurrah for the bonny blue flag that bears a single star.
That doesn't sound like the needlepoint club. It sounds like if something happens, this is going to be, I shouldn't say fun, it's going to be exciting, right? The County Sheriff's Brigade is that's the kind of thing that makes you want to stand up and join. And tonight, we're fortunate to have with us the founder of the County Sheriff's Brigade. This gentleman is a U.S. Air Force veteran. He's a researcher. He's a constitutional scholar, very specifically Pennsylvania Constitution, if I'm correct. Is that right? Okay, both U.S. and Pennsylvania Constitution. And he is the president of one of only two state federations of sheriff's brigades. So tonight we're going to learn a little bit more about the yellow sheet, a little bit more about what you're signing up for. And I want you to sit back and listen, take some notes, listen to what's going on, and then he's got a phenomenal array of information here that's going to take you a little further than we can go tonight. So listen up to what he's got to say, and take advantage of his literature, and be ready with questions. What we're going to do is, after he speaks, we're going to stop, take a brief break, we're going to pull out some numbers to see who wins the prizes, and then he's going to do Q&A. So you'll have plenty of time to ask some questions. If we're lucky, our sheriff will be here to maybe join in for the last few minutes. And I'm getting hints from the back of the room about how to pronounce his name right. Okay, they're playing charades with me in the back of the room. So I'm going to do this very, very, very carefully. I'd like you to give a rousing applause to our speaker for tonight, the head of the Sheriff's Brigade, William Taylor Reil.
Make that work. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I think I'd like to start where Lee just left off, and that is talk a little bit about the County Sheriff Brigades of Pennsylvania and the County Sheriff Brigades as a backdrop to before we start talking about the Constitution. In 2009, I had the privilege of being a delegate to the Continental Congress. How many of you know about that effort? It was 11 days. We worked about 20 hours a day. I've never worked harder for less and enjoyed it more. But that group of 110 delegates from all over the country was quite an inspiration. I happen to have the privilege to be the chairman of a subcommittee for the Civil Action Plan, and I wrote an introduction to our Civil Action Plan. And it didn't get accepted, but on the way back, I decided we would do it here in Pennsylvania. And that gave birth to the brigade concept. Actually, at that time, it was called the Sheriff Project. And Sheriff Richard Mack, how do you know of Sheriff Richard Mack? Well, we have a lot of learning to do then. Sheriff Richard Mack has been involved in trying to straighten out the government from the police officer standpoint, if you will, for many, many years. He took a case to the Supreme Court when the federal government passed the Brady Bill in 1994. And when the federal agents came to Arizona and asked the sheriffs in Arizona to collect information on gun owners and give it to them, had no reimbursement from the federal government, he objected and ended up suing them. That case went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court agreed with Sheriff Mack. It was a 10th Amendment case. It's an excellent case. And there's a summary up here, which I would recommend that you get and read it. I'll make reference to it in a bit. Called The Victory for State Sovereignty. It's a little short pamphlet, and it summarizes his case. I think it's extremely well done and very informative. But I had known Sheriff Mack for a number of years, and he asked me to be the state coordinator for the sheriff, and I did. And then when that went away, because the lady in Texas didn't want to go along with things that Sheriff Mack was doing, he started another organization, and that organization now is a Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. I mean, you've heard about that. Got some website folks. I would encourage you to get on that website and learn more about what he's doing. Now, to transition the sheriff project into something that we could do here, a lady out in Butler County named Donna Fife suggested, in fact started, Butler County Sheriff Brigade. I think I was the second one to sign on. And I called her and said, hey, that's a great idea. Why don't we do it all across the state? And will you help them set up websites and this kind of thing? And she said, sure, her husband would be glad to do that. And so we changed the sheriff project into the Sheriff Brigades. Now, many of you know that each county is supposed to have a sheriff, and the sheriff's jurisdiction is the county, the borders of the county and no further. And there have been sheriffs in Pennsylvania since before there was Pennsylvania. And so, building on that concept, the sheriff brigades only extend to the borders of the county. And sheriff brigades are not associated with the office, they're not part of the sheriff's office, but they are concerned citizens who want to organize a network and learn the law and stand together to help the sheriff do his or her job, and frankly help other citizens to understand the responsibility and duties of the sheriff, so that we can get our government back where we're supposed to have it. Now that won't solve all the problems, but it'll help. Excuse me. Now, the sheriff is the chief executive officer in the county. Everybody know that? He has been the chief executive officer in the county since before Pennsylvania was Pennsylvania, because there were counties here, weren't there? William Penn founded this Commonwealth, if you will, as his land grant from the king in 1682. He came, and actually Delaware was part of Pennsylvania initially, and when he sailed up and made his home in Bucks County, it split off Delaware, and Pennsylvania became pretty much what it is today. Little changes and boundaries going on that. At any rate, there were sheriffs here in Pennsylvania at that time. There were also constables. And those are the two peace officers elected in Pennsylvania and pretty much every other state, where they haven't been taken away. You may know that Connecticut no longer has sheriffs. They have 6 counties, they no longer have sheriffs. In Delaware, they're in the process of eliminating sheriffs. They have a case going, you know about Jeff Christopher. He's the sheriff in Sussex County in Delaware. And the Attorney General and the legislature said that he no longer has arrest powers or investigative powers, even though it's in their constitution. So we have some serious, serious problems. I can tell you that they've been working in this state to eliminate sheriffs for many, many years. So we're trying to say the people better wake up. I think all of you in this room know we have some serious problems, right? We have a lot of problems for a lot of reasons. But if we're going to solve them, we're going to have to get the government to follow the law. And they're not. Now, I've spent almost, 23 years now studying constitutional law here in Pennsylvania. I am not an attorney, and that's an advantage, frankly, because attorneys don't learn the law anymore. They learn cases and procedures, and very rarely do they read the Constitution, state or federal, and if they do, they use cases to justify what their positions are, and many times they're not correct. And so, our task, I think, is to learn ourselves. It's in plain English. You can learn it. How many of you have read the state constitution? You really need to do that. Now, it's a shame that the state constitution was taken out of our schools, I think in Chester County, where I made my home. It was done in 1976. Now, if the young people don't learn it, and we don't know it, then how in the world are we going to make sure that those in government do their job? I don't understand that. I also don't understand why they take an oath of office without reading it, but I can tell you that through the years, probably 21 years I've been doing this, I'll go up and say, have you read the state constitution? Usually in a public forum, and I'd encourage you to do the same thing. Get a bunch of copies, take them with you to the school boards and the county commissioners and frankly the sheriff, anybody who's in government, state representative, and ask them that question. My experience has been that over 90, almost 95% of times, other people I ask say no. Now they may be concerned because I usually preface by saying I've been studying constitutional law for how many years it's been, now it will be 23. And they may be concerned about the second question if they say yes. So that would be good if you learn enough about the Constitution so you can be in the same position. And if you're going to focus on anything, the Declaration of Rights in the Pennsylvania Constitution is excellent. Right at the beginning, Article 1 wasn't always there, but it is now and has been since 1874, I believe. But the point being is 7 pages. I had a township supervisor who had spent a total of 23 years in township government, either on the zoning board or as a supervisor. He had just finished a 6-year term as a supervisor. And I asked him if he read it. He said no. And I said, well, why not? He said, well, I didn't have time. Now that is the most people excuse, isn't it? Because you understand that before anybody goes in and takes a position in the government in Pennsylvania, they have to take an oath of office. It's found in Article 6, Section 3. And that oath says, I, whoever it is, do solemnly swear or affirm to support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this Commonwealth, and to discharge the duties of my office with fidelity. And you notice it doesn't have anything about statutes or rules or regulations or court decisions. The constitutions of what they're supposed to support, obey, and defend. So I would say to you, how in the world can someone take that oath if they haven't read the Constitution? And they don't understand it. Why? Because attorneys tell them don't worry about it. And attorneys don't have to worry about it because they're told not to worry about it. And there may be some reason for that, and I don't think I can cover all that tonight. Why they don't think they have to worry about it, but they definitely should. And we, the people, ought to demand that they do take it very seriously. One of the things, if you read on in Article 6, Section 3, if they fail to take the oath of office, they forfeit oath of office. They forfeit their office. So that must be pretty important, right? And also in Article 2, Section 15, it says that legislators in the General Assembly are free from arrest unless they commit treason, felonies, violate their oath of office, or breach the peace. So again, the Constitution has a penalty for violating their oath of office. And I would suggest to you that your representative and everybody else violates the oath of office. Probably pretty much every day. Particularly if your representative and senator takes a pension, as an example. in Article 2, Section 8, it says that the legislatures, that is the House of Representatives and the Senate, are entitled to their salary and mileage and no other compensation. Now, I don't know about you, but when I went to work, my salary, and if you look in the dictionary, it says what you get on a regular basis, every week, every 2 weeks, every month, right? It's a definition of your salary. And of course, mileage is pretty self-explanatory. So, I read it, you can read it, and that's exactly what it means. They were never intended to be full-time legislators, and they certainly weren't there for profit. But that has changed so drastically. We really do need to have representatives who do their job according to the law. So if somebody graciously says, a representative says, well, I'm going to give up my pension or some other compensation other than salary and mileage, you just say, thank you for doing your job, according to the law. So since they don't do that generally, they're breaking their oath every time they take a penny. There's other cases. So we want the people in Pennsylvania to network together at the county level. That's where the county is the building block for government, isn't it? All right, we got townships here in Pennsylvania, and they're part of it. But the county is really the building block. There were the first 4 counties, an example, in Pennsylvania, and then they spread out from that point initially. And the Sheriff Brigade is intended to be a vehicle by which you can do that. In consort with your Tea Party group or any other group, I'm not sure why Mark Hessler is starting his group, and it seems sort of redundant, but then I'm prejudiced, since I've been doing the brigade since 2009. But hey, if we can get people networked together, it doesn't really matter what you call yourself. Because frankly, if we don't do it, we lose. We may have already lost. The other side is so well organized and so well funded. And I tell you, the attorneys and judges are behind it all. And if you think about it, it could never happen without their involvement. Because if the courts were operating according to the Constitution, which is their job, isn't it? Just like everybody else, but they're sort of the final place you go. But if they were doing their job according to the law, you or I or anybody could go file a suit against somebody who's violating the law. The sheriff, by the way, would arrest them. And then they'd be prosecuted. The jury would judge both the law and the facts. And I think that, again, if we could educate the people as to what their duties are as a juror and as a grand jury, we would get a lot of indictments of those who are violating our rights in the law. And they'd be in government. And those people would either pay a fine or go to jail or both. Now, I don't think it would take too many prosecutions of those in government before the rest of them would get the idea. The game's up. And that doesn't exclude the district attorney or the judge, or judges. And who is in a position to make those charges and indictments? First of all, the arrest of the sheriff. The sheriff is the chief executive officer, in today's terms, the chief law enforcement officer in the county. Now, lest you doubt that, let me hand out something. I need some help here. Let's start down the speech line. Feel so inclined, want to make a contribution to the copy cost, I won't object. Getting rather expensive these days. Now, the first one there is the sheriff is chief law enforcement officer in the county. Have that one? Now, I start out by talking about the fact that the district attorney is not the chief law enforcement officer in the county, even though he thinks he is. How could that be? First of all, the district attorney is an attorney. And he holds the office of attorney at law, which is Title 42, Section 2521. He takes a special oath of office to the court. He actually works for and is controlled by the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. Article 5, Section 10C defines that in the Constitution. So, by all logic, he is the chief prosecutor, and only the chief prosecutor. But that's not what he thinks, because they want to eliminate the sheriff. The sheriff originally, the sheriff and the coroner were in a separate section in the Constitution up until 1874. At which point, without any authority I can find, they put them at the beginning of the county offices. The sheriff, coroner, and then all of that. And after the 1968 convention, again without any notice to the people, they eliminated the coroner in that list and put the sheriff down in the middle, beyond the DA. Now, attorneys and judges have been driving changes to our Constitution from the very beginning. And there was no exception in 1968. That's another discussion for another day. But I can tell you that we have a serious problem with the control by attorneys and judges in our society. And they have been stealing our rights, and the courts have been ruling against us for a long, long time. Now, until we can get those in government to follow the oath of office and take it very seriously, we're going to continue having this problem. So we can do all sorts of things. But until you get your government back in the box where it belongs, following the law, the rest of it's busy work. Because they can pass more bills and do more evil to us in a day than we can possibly fight in a year. Particularly when we were so disorganized. Now, it's great that you're out tonight. The question is, what do you do with the information that you learn in these meetings? What action you're taking? And it's great that there's a bill now in the House Bill 357, that the Argonauts have just put forward. I want to talk about that a little later, but that is a pure nullification bill. You know what nullification is? I'm a whole week here. You need to learn about that. And you can learn about it in a couple ways. We have a website, fortunately, and that is the County Sheriff Brigades of Pennsylvania. And the address is on the back of the sheriff document. And it's also on the guns are not for cause, down at the bottom. So you don't have to write it down or remember it. But I would encourage you to go to that website and start reading the documents. I've written most of them, but there are other authors as well on various subjects. And the whole idea is to educate people as to what the truth in the law is. On January 31st, 2011, I said to my cohort from Cumberland County, his name is Jim Compton, he and I do most of this. And he had been fighting Reil. How many of you know about Reil? Very few people here are informed. 2005, the federal government passed a bill that was going to create a national ID through the driver's license. And in fact, there were a whole lot of requirements that had to be implemented. One of them was a high-resolution digital image, which, by the way, started being done here in Pennsylvania at the DMV in 2006. So if you've had a driver's license renewed since 2006, you have a high-resolution video taken of you. It's in a database, which, by the way, is accessible anywhere in the world. So they can have a camera somewhere, scan you walking down the street, or when you pull up to the Easy Pass or whatever, you take your picture through the windshield. They can, in fact, run that and see if you look like somebody they're looking for. Now, there is currently another bill that Jim and I are working on to eliminate that high-resolution image. I rather that was going to happen. But nevertheless, Jim and I worked on that for 5.5 years until finally this say that Pennsylvania would not participate in the Real ID Act. So if anybody says you can't nullify something, just use that as an example. The Real ID Act was nullified in Pennsylvania. Now it's pretty much gutted, and the Department of Transportation got most of everything we wanted, like the high resolution imaging. But at least we got a bill nullified. So this House Bill 357 is a pure nullification bill. It says that Pennsylvania will not participate in any new federal gun control or magazines or accessories. And it has some teeth because it says that if the federal or state or local officer tries to enforce it, he's subject to a felony in the 3rd degree. That's some teeth. It also has in it that the Attorney General, if you are prosecuted for not turning in your guns, it's his job to defend you. Now, it's going to be a tough bill to get passed in that form. They've been done in other states. I encourage everybody to talk to your representative, encourage him to keep doing it, and he's changed his position, and I would encourage you to call out and thank him for it. Stay with him, because just signing on as a co-sponsor doesn't mean he's going to vote for it. More importantly, it may not get out of committee because the Judiciary Committee Chair doesn't like Gerald Metcalf, I understand, and nor does he believe that the bill is constitutional. He's wrong, but nevertheless, that's what he believes. But he's an attorney, so you know, sort of take it from where the source is. Point being is, his argument is that the Supremacy Clause prohibits the state from doing this, that, which is wrong. I wrote an article that's on the website now, true meaning of the Supremacy Clause. And so we need to apply pressure to the Judiciary Committee right now. We'll be doing that. If you know some people that are on the Judiciary Committee, by all means, please call them, tell them they need to get 357 out of the committee. But it's not going to move without a whole lot of pressure. Shouldn't have to do this. But there lies the problem. We have a bunch of legislators who don't know the law. They think they run the world, and they listen to attorneys. Boy, there's a devastating combination. Right? So we have some serious problems that we have to overcome. But if you look at this document about the sheriff being the chief law enforcement officer, I make my positions known. First is, he is the chief executive officer. He is the top cop in the county. And there is no one in law enforcement with more authority than the sheriff. Now, the municipal police came into existence toward the late 1800s, started in New York. The state police in Pennsylvania were initiated in 1905. They were the Pinkertons, and they guarded the coal mines. And now they're the sheriff, they are the police for the governor. All right? So the state police, of course, they have the governor's ear. They get the best funding. They got the best labs. They got the best training. On and on and on. They think they're the top dogs, but they're not. In the county, the sheriff is. They don't recognize it, and of course, they think the DA is the chief law enforcement officer. The sheriff's just, courthouse lackey, right? He guards the courtrooms, and he transports prisoners, and he does foreclosure, doing sales of houses and foreclosure, those kind of things. Nothing of significance. In fact, the sheriff no longer even controls the prisons. Now, that is absurd. The sheriff was always responsible for the prison. You remember the Old West? How many of you watch Old West? Right? What happened when the mob showed up at the jail and he wanted to haul somebody out who was in jail? The sheriff stood on the porch or stood in the front of the crowd and said, "Through me." Even though he may be guilty, he's entitled to due process and have a jury. Or when the bank was robbed, what did he do? He said, "Okay, guys, go get your guns and your horses. We're going after the crook." Right? He deputized the people in the community to join him and his deputies to go get the bad guy. That power exists today in Pennsylvania. In fact, every sheriff has that power. And it's called the posse comitatus of the entire community. Now, only the sheriff can create a posse. Only the sheriff. Militias, on the other hand, we can form those, and if you want to read a good book on militias, Dr. Ed Vieira, North Carolina, excellent lawyer, has written a book called Sword and Sovereignty. It's a long book. I haven't read all of it yet, but it is a intense study on what militias are, what their purposes are, their authority, and the fact that we have the authority of militias and they've been stolen from us. In Pennsylvania, the militias were changed to the Pennsylvania National Guard in 1870. Now, I don't know how we can have a Pennsylvania National anything if Pennsylvania still exists as a state. Can you? How can you have a Pennsylvania National something? Well, truth be known, after the so-called 14th Amendment, the states were irrelevant, and the things that followed, again, discussion for another day. And so they are concerned that they will be arrested and put in jail. My answer to the sheriff is, well, guess what? That's part of the job. You know, they have no problem taking some of us who aren't guilty of anything, putting us in jail. So, step up. This is what you get paid for. I generally ask people, did you get elected? And they say yes. I said, did you take an oath of office? Yeah. You get paid? Yeah. Why aren't you doing your job? According to the Constitution. According to that oath. Why do we let them get away with it? Probably the only job in the world where they don't know have to know what their job description is, don't have to do it, and yet they say, well, maybe that's not true. But government jobs are probably the only ones that allow them to get away with that. I know that if you work in private enterprise, if you don't do your job, what happens? You get fired. You get disciplined. You do all sorts of things. It doesn't seem to work in government. They get a raise. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, right. Well, that's that. That's a principle, right? The position of the company. Anyway, the first paragraph, a couple paragraphs in this page on the sheriff, is my summary. The rest of it is out of a couple of books. Two-volume set, Anderson on Sheriff, written in 1941 by an attorney. Everything you want to know and more about sheriffs, constables, and coroners. And as I said to our sheriff in Chester County, a lot of little, I said, I would like for you to read this because it has all the information you need. Well, there's a lot of little print in that book. And there is. It's 8.5 by 14, and it's a lot of little print. Well, I've read it. And I said, well, I'm glad to teach you, and you guys these information's in here. You just have to take me up on it. But the bottom line is, if you don't know what you're supposed to do, again, how can you do your job? So this information, unfortunately, is not in print anymore, but some friends of mine did put it on a DVD, so if your sheriff really wants to know, they're available, $20 a piece. And the last of this document is excerpts from Anderson on Sheriff. You can see it starts with section 42, goes over through 50, and then I have a summary. So, I don't make any of this up. Don't need to. The sheriff his duties, or her duties, cannot be diminished unless there's a constitutional amendment. As far as I know, there has never been a constitutional amendment to diminish any of the authority that the sheriff had in 1776. So, there were no municipal police, there were no state police, there were sheriffs. Did we not have law and order in this state before the late 1800s? Sure we did. Did the sheriff not arrest and investigate, do all that kind of work? Sure they did. And unfortunately, the problem is, government wants to be able to control people, and one way you can control people is, if you don't do what we tell you to do, we're going to fire you. Right? We're going to take your pay away. Well, you can't do that to a sheriff. You might try to diminish their pay, but that would be unconstitutional as well. But they cannot diminish the authority or power of the sheriff without a constitutional amendment. Now, they're trying to do it in Delaware. We'll see how the case turns out. I hope that the Supreme Court eventually rules correctly. We'll see. But there's the evidence. And now what that means, you can go to your sheriff and say, necessarily agree with the title, but it's his title. I think that God is our life hope, and that we must in fact do what God tells us to do. And one of the things he tells us is we have to defend our rights, don't we? There's no one who's more interested in you having your rights than you are. So we got to do it. Now, in order to do it, you need to understand the law. The way you do that is look in the Constitution. The Pennsylvania Constitution is really clearer than the Second Amendment. I want to talk about the Second Amendment in a minute. Article 1, Section 21 of the Pennsylvania Constitution says what? The right of the citizens to bear arms in defense of themselves and the state shall not be questioned. Nothing unclear about that. Article 1, Section 25 says, power to preserve the people. To guard against the transgressions of the high powers which we have delegated, we declare that everything in this article is accepted out of the general powers of government and shall forever remain inviolate. That was the last article in the Declaration of Rights until they added a whole bunch of other stuff later on. And there's a court case that confirms that without a constitutional amendment, those things in Article 1 cannot be changed. They can't legislate on things in Article 1. It's Urban versus Mitchell. For those of you who like to go along and follow our grades, 207, Pennsylvania, 79. It's a 1903 state Supreme Court decision. It also applies, by the way, to the right to work. Because it deals with Article 1, Section 1, and Article 1, Section 25, but in essence, everything in Article 1. It says that without a constitutional amendment, the legislature cannot legislate on those issues. They do it all the time in direct conflict with the Constitution. And therein lies the problem. These folks go to Harrisburg, and they got to justify their existence. And someone says, oh, there ought to be a law. And so then they write up something. And it may already be in the Constitution. There's a lot of things that are covered in the Constitution that don't need to have statutes. If people would really understand how powerful the Constitution is, for instance, understanding the definition of words. Everybody says, well, liberty is just being able to go where you want to, right? But no, it's much more than that. Here's Black's Law Dictionary on the word liberty. Freedom from all restraint except such as are justly imposed by law. The question has to be answered, what is the law and to whom does it apply? And those are very important questions. But liberty, liberty, guaranteed and protected by constitutional provisions, notes not only freedom from unauthorized physical restraint, but embraces also the freedom of an individual to use and enjoy his faculties in all lawful ways, acquire lawful knowledge, marry, establish a home, and bring up their children, worship God according to the dictates of their own conscience, live and work where they choose, engage in any of the common and lawful occupations of life, enter into all contracts which may be proper and essential to carrying out successfully the foregoing purposes, and generally to enjoy these privileges long recognized as a common law as essential to the orderly pursuit of happiness by free people. Wow, that's really broad, isn't it? Now, let me ask you a question. Do you have to have government permission to exercise the God-given right? No. So, think about how much you have to ask government in order to do something today. It's amazing, isn't it? Now, I just said that you have a God-given right to marry. You've got to give a marriage license, right? Do you know what a license is? Pardon me? Somebody have an answer? According to Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition, permission from a competent authority to do something without such permission would be illegal or trespass or tort or not otherwise allowable. very similar. It's just not unlawful. You just can't do it without their permission. So in essence, it's the same thing. And it's often interchanged. Now let's go to the gun issue. They want you to get a permit to carry concealed, right? You can carry exposed or open, right? You don't have to have that in Pennsylvania. It's not the way it is in all states. It should be. But let me ask you this question. Do you think that when the framers wrote the Constitution in 1776, they cared whether their musket was under their jacket or outside their jacket? So what does the Constitution mean? It means what it meant when it was written until it's changed according to the procedure specifically spelled out in the Constitution. That's state and federal. And they are not giving you a right. These are God-given rights to protect yourself. Government does not give you these rights. You do not have a Second Amendment right. That's a clever little thing that people like to tell you so it sounds real easy. You have a right protected by the Second Amendment in the federal jurisdiction, not inside the state. There is absolutely no authority for the state to come in, the federal government to come into the state, except for what they've done unconstitutionally. And the courts and their decisions, which are all wrong. And you can read about that on the website. I've written on these subjects. Your right to bear arms is a God-given right. I took Justice Scalia on when he did an interview and he said that, well, you can have anything you can carry. You can't have a cannon. And we'll have to deal with these shoulder-mounted rockets when they come before us, whether that's a right that you can have. Why do you think the framers put that right, that provision, in the Constitution, in the state Constitution in 1776, and in the federal Constitution in the Bill of Rights, which was ratified in December 15, 1791? Why do you think the right to bear arms is in there? So you can go hunting, target shooting? You listen to these people and they just aren't full of it. And this idea that this semi-automatic weapon is a assault rifle or assault weapon, how ridiculous is that? If you take a rock and you hit somebody over the head, isn't the rock an assault weapon? Bat, hands, stick, whatever. This is just attorney speak to get you to think that, oh, that's a terrible looking thing. It's black and it's got these really, really strange things on it to make it so you can hold it when it gets hot. But that's not an assault weapon. Even a fully automatic weapon wouldn't necessarily be an assault weapon, unless you use it to assault somebody. In which case, what is the crime? Not the gun, but the fact that you assaulted someone. Oh, by the way, if they were coming after you, don't you have the right to defend yourself? So would it be an assault weapon if they're coming after you with another gun the same size? It's sort of like, why in the world would you go to a gunfight with a knife? This makes no sense at all. All right? In fact, the provisions in the Constitution are there to fight off tyrannical governments. Everybody had a gun because they ate what they shot in the days when they wrote the Constitution. And they all brought their sons and daughters up so they could use them. This is not something that was uncommon. In fact, if the colonials, and the early people in the States didn't have a weapon, and the federal government wanted you to be in the service of the federal government, they provided the gun so you could, in fact, be in the militia and be called up. And you had to be trained, and you had to be regular. And that's what the Second Amendment talks about. The militia being necessary for a free state, right? The right for the people to bear arms so not be infringed. But this whole argument that's going on is totally absurd and unconstitutional. You and I can have any weapon that the government has. Is that shocking?
No.
What were the weapons available when the War for Independence was fought? Muskets, rifles, and cannons. Not all had swords and knives. Now you tell me that the colonists didn't have all those weapons? They had cannons, and they could be in somebody's house. They just happened to keep them in a common place. But they belonged to somebody. This is a totally ridiculous argument. Particularly when you lay it outside the Pennsylvania Constitution. Shall not be questioned. Why in the world do we have all these gun laws? Why in the world do you have to go get a permit? To get permission from the government to do something you have a right to do? Can you answer that question?
Yeah, because they'll put you in jail.
Okay, they'll put you in jail because they brainwash us all to believe that they have the power to do that. And if the sheriff was doing his or her job, which is what I told my sheriff, she said, well, you're going to want me to stop issuing permits. I said, well, at least you ought to tell the people that it's not required. But if you don't get it, they're going to put you in jail. So until we get this fixed, get the permit if you choose so. Some people choose not to. All right? But then it becomes the responsibility of the individual to make that choice, not government telling them that you got to have it. Now, I think we the people ought to network together and instruct all those in the county level and everywhere else for that matter, that they're breaking the law when they do this. And I have a paper on there. It's unconstitutional on the website. It's unconstitutional to issue or to require or issue a permit to carry concealed. So read it. Read my position on it. Now, it is totally the result of the fact that we have unconstitutional governments. You're right. They will put you in jail. Sometimes that's the thing we have to do. We have to be willing to pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor, just like the framers did. If you think about it, this country is right where we were in 1776 before the war broke out. Read the Declaration of Independence and all of the things that they were complaining about to the king, and see how many of those are being done to us today. I suggest all of them in one form or another. And you will learn that it's been going on intently since the war between the states, and aggressively, more aggressively since FDR, that's Franklin Delano Roosevelt, instituted the Emergency Banking Act in March 1933. This country has been under a national emergency since March 9, 1933. Never been out of it. And the President and Secretary of Treasury have pretty much all the power. Congress is pretty much irrelevant. It goes through the motions. They've been working on it since 1973 to get some of the power back. But no president has ever relinquished the power that he stole in 1933. Again, I just got through writing a couple of papers on that, so you can read that. That's the War and Emergency Powers of 1933. There's a lot wrong, and it's a lot to cover in just a few minutes. The second document I gave you is Guns Are Not the Cause. I wrote that paper after this end book. I dropped it. And every time, there is one of these mass murders, and it is extremely tragic. And if you look at it, where are they? They're in gun-free zones, and they involve people who are mentally unstable. And people are usually seclusive, they're loners, they play games, there's all sorts of things. So, I wrote this in response to it, quoted the state constitution. It said the guns are not the cause, the guns kill people. It's not guns, it's people kill people. So I listed 12 things. I like the number 12 because that's a number for justice, a biblical number for justice. 12 things that I think really contribute to the fact that we have this problem. It's not the gun. That's just a tool. We already know that they can blow up buildings and stuff. So that's another pretty much big assault weapon. So taking God out of the public square is our first big problem. We turn away from the principles of morality and found in the Bible. That is our biggest problem. The second one is gun-free zones. Then listen to certain attorneys and judges and professors and those kind of folks. the media, you can read the rest of it. Drugs, legal and illegal. Another big problem is this idea that, oh my goodness, if we tell Johnny he's out of step, he'll be harmed for life. You know, you can't possibly spank him. Oh my goodness, that will just devastate the kid. Well, there are abusive people that spank their children excessively, I know that. But frankly, for those of you who are my age, you never remember my age or more, I'm 71. Going to the principal's office and getting a walk with paddle isn't necessarily a bad thing. My mother certainly had no problem doing that, and I survived somehow. It's amazing. Now, some might say, well, yeah, well, how you turned out. Well, the bottom line is, I have respect for the truth, and I don't lie. And that was something my mother wouldn't tolerate. She told me very early, you don't do it, and if you do, there's a consequence. Not a bad thing.
Amen.
And we have people in government at the highest level who have no concept of the truth. No concept whatsoever. Right. There's an article there on the website about eligibility. I'm losing active-born citizens. Read that. Mr. Obama is not. Mr. Obama is not, never could be an active-born citizen.
So how do we impeach him?
Pardon me?
How do we impeach him?
Well, let's hold that question for just a minute and I'll answer it, all right? I'll do it now. First of all, the biggest problem is to impeach, you have to file a petition for impeachment with the House of Representatives.
Yeah.
And those guys haven't got enough backbone to cut the budget. They want, and there's no paper on there about this, they're going to cut the budget by $85 billion. That's a sequester. The Federal Reserve pumps into the economy $85 billion a month.
Yeah.
How big a farce is that? And the whole world's going to come to an end. What I'd really like to see is they just shut the federal government down totally. And everybody would find out. Guess what? The world goes on. It keeps turning. Right? Now you might be inconvenienced a little bit, but so what? I guess you have to go out and work a little harder maybe. All right? Oh, by the way, if it shuts down, why would you send all those taxes? My suggestion to that is let's put the taxes in an escrow in the state, call back the senators and representatives and say to the federal government, until you start operating according to the law, about 8% of what they do is unconstitutional, by the way, my estimate. Until they start doing that, we're not sending any money to it.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, there's no money. Anyway, again, another subject for another day. The answer is it's really hard to get the crooks to impeach another crook. Particularly since they know that that guy in the White House allegedly has all the power he needs to have. Since 1933, the President and the Secretary of Treasury have had all the power.
So if that happened in 1933, what do you have to do to get that back out of the office of the president?
According to them, the President has to relinquish it. So don't blame the Democrat, don't blame the Republican, none of them are willing to give it up. All right? The answer to that is what they did was unconstitutional. And there's a famous statement in the congressional record, I believe, Judge Perez in Louisiana, when talking about the so-called 14th Amendment, which is unconstitutional, etc. That again is on the website, read about it, a couple articles on it, and a whole bunch of websites that you can read on it. But what he said was, when the Constitution is violated, the Constitution strikes with nullity that which does violence to its provisions. The Constitution strikes with nullity that which does violence to its provisions. You don't need anything. They take an oath of office to support, obey, and defend the Constitution, or to protect and defend it to the federal level. All right? They're not doing it. They're violating it. And everything that they do is null and void from the time that they did it. Everything.
Yeah, but fight them on that.
Yeah.
Fight them on that, and you're not going to win.
Okay. That's why we need
That flag right there that's in this building, in this room, is a military flag. with a
All right,
fringe on it.
I understand that, I have non-fringe flags out in the car, if you'd like for me to bring me, I will. But I decided not to do it. And again, I challenged that in the Pennsylvania courts, went nowhere. All right? But I've done that over the 24 years, 23 years. The answer to your question, and let's spend a couple minutes on solutions because I know I've painted a very dark picture. The sheriff is one of the solutions. If the sheriff says, not in my county, and we say, okay, you're going to be a constitutional sheriff, we're with you. And we get organized and we get trained. Get on the website, and on the front page, it has a document about the sheriff, and it really replicates this document. And I link to, on the bottom, there's about a posse. And I describe what a posse is. And then I link you to Maricopa County, Arizona, Sheriff Popeye's posse. Now, they didn't have a posse since the early 40s. He's got over 3,000, I think about 3,700 people in his posses now. He's got all sorts of different posses. It's really fascinating. All right? And they're trained, and they do various things. I think the funniest one is they have two posses in a retirement home called Sun City and Sun City West. And you get on there and see the pictures, and they're all dressed up in their uniforms. They got their badge, and they go around and they do what I guess we would call community watch. And if they see something going on that's wrong, they call the sheriff or another posse that's authorized to use force. We need that kind of involvement of the citizens, so that the sheriff says, okay, you got 100 people coming from Washington, I got 5,000. Bring it on. Well, first of all, they're a bunch of cowards. They aren't going to bring it on. They're going to go away because they got no authority. They have no authority. That's the remedy. If you want to solve this problem, get a network, learn the law, and stand up and say no. That's called nullification, by the way. You have the right to say no, don't we? I used to. How many of you have children? What's the first word that they said? Now, I know that our daughter learned it from us. Probably the same with you, because, don't do that. No. Right? But we have forgotten how to say no. We've been conditioned to believe everything they say. We went to school, in the government schools, and we taught us all this stuff. We were walking in a straight line and all this other stuff. No is a valid answer, and we've got to start saying it with authority. Right? Now, in the county, there's all sorts of ways you can have to say no. First of all, the sheriff. The sheriff ought to stand up and say, I'm the top cop, and if you don't like it, guess what? I'm going to issue a warrant for your arrest. Now, what sheriff in Chester County says, well, if I do that, the DA is going to arrest me. Well, you got to be willing to step up, and I say, we have to stand with them. All right? But her answer is, well, if I arrest somebody else, I arrest the DA. They're not going to prosecute. And I say, well, what's the remedy to that? What is the job of the DA? Prosecute criminals. And the sheriff has determined that there's a criminal. There at least has to be a hearing to see whether, in fact, there's probable cause. There has to be an indictment if there's a crime. By 25 citizens. Probably eliminated that now. The DA can do it on information. We've lost our positions in the government as the people. We need citizen grand juries so that we can start indicting these folks. So if the DA doesn't do his job, what's the remedy?
Arrest them.
Thank you. And then she says, well, even if we arrest the DA, the judge won't hear the case. I said, come on, you can figure this out.
Arrest the judge.
You got a deputy sheriff in every courtroom. And the deputy ought to know the law. And when the judge or the prosecutor or anybody, for that matter, breaks the law, you ought to step up to the judge and say, Judge, I just saw you break the law. I would really like for you to correct that mistake so I won't have to arrest you. I had a young deputy in a case where the judge did violate my rights, and after the judge was out of the program, I said, you just saw the judge violate my rights multiple times, you did nothing. You should have arrested him. The kid was pretty quick. doing your job, maybe the citizens of the county see fit to give you a raise.
Amen.
The point is, praise when it's necessary, criticize when necessary. And we need to have our government, the people in government, understand that they work for us, not the other way around.
Exactly.
Right? Now, the only way they're going to do that, is for us to understand and to be willing to stand up, and if you have to, go to jail, and then go to court, and then make them pay. All right? I can tell you that in the early 90s, I helped form the Pennsylvania Committee of Correspondence. We published a paper and a whole bunch of things for a number of years. And the idea there was to educate the network, same thing with the brigades, all right? And I wanted to have 100 people in each county of Pennsylvania do what I do, and that is challenge everything and anything. Take every issue to the state Supreme Court. Can you imagine if 100 people were doing that? The courts would have to start dealing with murders and rapes and robberies and stop doing all these victimless crime stuff that they do in order to collect revenue.
Yeah.
All right? That's not enough now. They don't have the funding to do it. The point is, we the people sit around and let them get away with it. Because we might get arrested. Yes, you might get arrested. When do you think you're going to be stronger? Today or tomorrow?
We are a band of brothers and native to the soil, fighting for our liberty through famine, war, and toil. And when our rights were threatened, the cry rose near and far.